Hey, thanks for clicking on the video. This video is going to be about a presentation that we were given by Chevrolet about the Bolt EV. If you're still interested, keep watching. Thanks.
Years ago, I decided to become an engineer because I'm an introvert, and these kind of things don't come naturally to me. So hopefully, give me some break here if it doesn't go so smooth. Let's see. All right, yeah. So Fred already said, Tyler, lead development engineer of the Chevy Bolt EV. I came on the program for the Bolt EV a few years ago when it was in the initial stages of development, and we're going to talk sort of in detail on what we did and what our targets were for the vehicle. But before we get on that, let's talk a little bit about Chevy, right? Chevy has a saying, "Find new roads," and they're trying to live it more than just a tagline, but a philosophy in everything they do, and you'll see it throughout the So right now we have the strongest lineup in our history. We've got a 3-truck strategy, and we have the new Silverado over here being displayed. We've got a refreshed car lineup and a new line of crossovers, which are pretty outstanding, and a bunch of those are here today as well. And Chevy right now is the most awarded car company in the last 3 years, and big thanks to this car is being one of the big award winners. And you'll see later on, we've won. When this car came out, we swept all the major awards, which was pretty exciting to be on the program. So this is the car we're here to talk about today, the Chevy Bolt EV, a pure electric vehicle. But Jim just didn't, jump right into this. We kind of have a history, especially over the last 4 or 5 years, on electrification. Starting back to the original Chevy Volt, which came out in, I think, December of 2010 as a 2011 model year. It had a 35 miles of EV range and an engine, what we call our extended range electric vehicle. It has an engine in the vehicle as a backup as you run out of electric power. The vehicle automatically switch over to use the engine to get you where you want to go. We also had the Spark EV, which used the same battery as the Volt. And this was available in limited markets, but it was our first re-entry into the pure electric vehicle. The Spark EV, we had that for a few years, and that was sort of the precursor to what we wound up with here. And since then, also we got the new Chevy Volt with a more powerful pack than we had before. We have 53 miles range on the new Chevy Volt. We have one of those right here also. But all of this has led us to, and the learnings of these vehicles has led us to the Bolt EV. But we also don't want to forget, as far as our electric vehicles and hybrids are concerned, we have the Chevy Malibu Hybrid, which gets 49 miles per gallon city and 43 highway. So it's actually a really nice car. As far as expanding the e-revs, the electric vehicles, and then a hybrid, we have all of those in the Chevy lineup. So what we're talking about here today, really, the electric Volt or the electric Bolt EV. We wanted the EV adaptation is really on the climb. A lot more people are getting into electric vehicles. That apprehension of not having enough range, that is starting to fall away, and EV adaptation, we think, is here to stay, and we're going to continue to work in that range, in that zone. So, the Bolt EV, we had, going back to the EV adaptation, we wanted to understand what did customers need in an electric vehicle to get them to make that jump from a conventional vehicle into electric. And we talked to a lot of current EV owners and then EV intenders, people who were interested in EV, but they weren't quite ready to make that leap. So what did they need? What do they need in a vehicle for them to feel comfortable to say, okay, yeah, I can jump into my first electric vehicle. And it boiled down to what we call our, kind of the 4 pillars. And I'm going to come back to these throughout the presentation. But one, the customers wanted long range. And, through some studies that we did, we determined that long range is, a minimum of 200 miles range. We needed to get above 200 miles range for people to, kind of get away from that apprehension of, not being able to get where they want to go on an electric vehicle. They wanted it to be affordable, less than $30,000 or in that range. They wanted it to be functional. They wanted space inside the vehicle. They didn't want it to be some quirky 2-seater or something. They wanted a vehicle that they could use every day like they do their normal vehicle or their previous vehicle. And then, of course, performance. You want it to feel, acceleration and feel fun to drive. So, in the end, what we came up with was an electric vehicle that not only had the functionality inside, but had, 238 miles range with a 60 kilowatt hour pack and, 0 to 60 performance of 6.5 seconds. It's fun to drive. It's the range that they're looking for. It's that functionality. And we came in at less than $30,000 after federal tax credits. So let's step into how we got there. Okay. And this is a little bit more detail about the car, right? So it's 164 inches in length, 102-inch wheelbase, passenger volume of 94.4 cubic feet, and cargo behind the rear seat. The rear seat, or behind the front seats, the rear seats fold down of 56.6 cubic feet. We worked on aero. We got a 308 coefficient of drag, 16 kilograms. Mass is important when you're looking for that range. And we wound up with an MPGE city of 128 and highway of 110. With a composite of 119 MPGE, and then of course our range of 238. So you have to start right from the bones, right? Start from the initial structure of the vehicle. So going after those 4 pillars, right? We needed interior space. We needed that range. You got to go after mass for the range. We need to be able to meet and exceed all of the federal crash and IIHS guidelines, and also the performance. And performance, not just 0 to 60, but like your ride handling and your noise vibration. So that starts with, we wound up with starting from clean slate. It's a purpose-built architecture for this vehicle that uses a large amount of high-strength steels, ultra-high-strength steels, and aluminum to keep the body mass down and the strength up. We have 81.5% of the body structure uses high and advanced high-strength steels, and 95% of the underbody uses it. And then the closures, the hood, the doors, the rear closure are aluminum to try to keep the mass down. So those high-strength steels help with not only the mass control, but we wanted to meet all of and exceed all of the federal safety standards, and this is one of the sort of the, like I said, the bones of it that gets you to be able to do all of the things that you're trying to do. Second. So that was the body, right? The pack itself, we decided it needed to be part of the structure. It needed to be in the floor of the vehicle. And actually, as I was standing back here earlier today, I could see that the floor is so reflective, you can kind of see the structure of the pack reflecting off the floor. Actually, it's the structure of the lattice that holds the pack in place. But that was part of the structure from the get-go. So we have this, the high strength steels that were part of that structure, or part of the body in white. But we took the pack and made the pack part of that structure to increase the vehicle stiffness, to help with the crash protection. We have the purple lattice in the middle that helps with the vehicle rigidity, but also helps with side impact. You'll see in the next slide how we sort of project the loads around the pack to protect the pack, but also to protect the vehicle and to meet these crash standards. So with the addition of the pack and the way we did the pack, the torsional stiffness of the vehicle increased, close to 30% from, with and without the pack. That increased torsional stiffness is not only helps with, the safety, but you need vehicle stiffness in order for you to properly control noise and vibration and ride and handling. If you get a nice stiff body, then your noise and vibration and ride and handling becomes a little bit easier chore. You can do a little bit more with it. And, the vehicle itself is, a blast to drive. So we use the pack itself and that lattice structure of the pack to improve or to protect the battery, but also to improve and to reach the IAHS side impact and the federal safety standards for side impact. Back to some of the mass savings, right? You want that range, you want that performance. Mass is a big one. You need to keep that mass down. So if you notice here on a couple of the bullet points, right, the battery weighs 429 kilograms, and the body in white is 372. The battery itself weighs more than the body in white. That does a couple things, right? Our center of gravity is very low in the vehicle, and that helps with ride and handling, along with that body stiffness, right? So having that center of gravity low really helps with a lot of the integration of that. But we also done a couple other things in the vehicle to try to control and manage that mass. Right? We have an aluminum cradle where we saved 4.8 kilograms over steel. We have aluminum knuckles. We have some of the drive mounts are plastic. We have aluminum lower control arms. We went with aluminum hood, lift gate, doors, and front fenders to save an additional 26 kilograms. So, from the start, mass is important for us to reach those four pillars that we're going after. Going into the suspension chassis system a little bit further, we've chose independent McPherson struts with side-loaded springs. We have a column-mounted electronic power steering that has a brushless motor, but has compensation for pull drift, and it has compensation for smooth road shake for the customer for that ride down the road. We have a compound crank rear suspension with angled bushings, which helps correct understeer, and we have aluminum wheels that are about 60 kilonewtons per millimeter stiffness, a little bit, which is higher than industry standard. But stiff wheel helps with road isolation, right? So that you can isolate that the noises from the road. When you have a vehicle that has no engine, to mask some of those road noises, it becomes important to be able to manage that. So we have we worked on the tire or the wheel itself to make it nice and stiff to help with that. We've mounted low rolling resistance tires on it. It's the lowest rollers that we use in GM 0042, and we have then we worked with Michelin, and this is the first application in GM where we have self-sealing tires. So there's a glue inside the tire which will seal up to a 3/16 inch nail. And we've actually, unintentionally did this at work a couple times where, we pulled the car into the garage and, put it up on hoist for one reason or another, and we noticed a bolt sticking out of the tire, and, and we didn't lose any pressure. Aluminum suspension, knuckle control, we talked about that. And then we have our electronic transmission range selection. So it's a shift-by-wire. And the shift-by-wire is takes a little bit to get used to maybe, but it allows a lot of flexibility. And one of the things we do with the shift-by-wire, I think if I have these in the right order here, is we have what we're calling our one pedal driving. And this is something that people who get in the car and use this, it's got a really quick learning curve, and it's a great way to drive. So on your shifter, you normally will pull back and go into drive, and that's sort of your default mode. And in drive, we calibrated the drive to act like a conventional vehicle. You know, one of the things about this vehicle is we wanted it to be a great vehicle, even if it wasn't an EV, great to drive, you know, fun to use, but we wanted to, you know, eliminate that apprehension, like I mentioned earlier, of non-EV customers. So in drive, we have, when you lift your foot off the accelerator pedal, we do some capturing of your energy as the vehicle is slowing down. We use the motor to put energy back into the pack. But we had calibrated it in drive to act like a conventional vehicle. So when you lift your foot off the accelerator, you'll get some coast, right? We want people to be able to get into this car and feel like they're in a normal car. But we have this one pedal drive mode where you pull the paddle back again and you go into low. And in low, we increase our regen quite a bit. We actually will cancel creep torque. So now you can drive the vehicle, modulating vehicle speed with your accelerator pedal only. You don't have to go and push on the brake. You can drive through city traffic and just have your foot on the accelerator pedal the whole time. Come into a stop as you lift it all the way off, and then go and, you know, as traffic pulls away, you know, tip in again. And I drive the cars all the time for work. I'm in low, I bet you 90, 95% of the time. It's a great way to drive. It's a lot of fun. You can do it at all speeds. You know, it's not low like a conventional car where, you know, you're maybe shifting to a lower gear. It's low, but it's an increase in regen. You can do this on the highway all the way up to top speed. It's a really great feature. I think our calibrators did a wonderful job on this. It's really intuitive. You jump in, and within a few minutes, bang, you're into it, and you're using it and loving it. But if that's not enough, we have a couple other levels of regen. You know, if you prefer to be in drive because you like that coast on feeling, you can, if you want to, in a certain stop, you want to increase your regen just temporarily. We have a paddle behind the steering wheel. You pull that paddle, and your regen will increase, and you can bring you to a stop. And if you hold that paddle into the stop, it'll cancel creep torque on you, so then you don't have to hold your foot on the brake or the brake to hold the vehicle. But then also, the highest level is if you're driving around in low all the time, and even the low, in some cases, you might want even more regen. You can pull the paddle in low and get our highest level of regen, and that'll really bring you down to a stop. So, we offer these 4 levels. It's a lot of fun. You've got the customer that maybe isn't the EV enthusiast and they just want to drive like a normal vehicle, sure enough. And then you've got the EV enthusiasts that can play with our one pedal driving and the additional regen paddles. So now we'll talk a little bit about the propulsion system. So if you take the body off, take the top off the vehicle, what you'll see here is you'll see the pack is part of that lower structure. The pack is all down below. The pack is broken up into 5 modules. You'd see it in a little bit later. And then we have all the power electronics up front. The power electronics manage your high voltage and your drive unit and the charging and switching to 12-volt system and such. But okay, so this is showing the battery and then your main high voltage components. So the green is obviously the battery with the case over the battery. We have the drive unit up front. That drive unit is 360 newton meters and 150 kilowatts, or 266 foot-pounds and 200 horsepower. We have our single power inverter module. We'll go into that one a little bit later, but what that is that the inverter takes your DC and converts it into a 3-phase AC to run your motor, and then all of the controls on how we control the motor and control the regen, that's all done through that S-pin. That's what we refer to it. We've got the battery pack, which is 60 kilowatt hours and 150 kilowatts that it can provide. We have our accessory power module. that does your conversion into 12 volt, because we do have obviously a lot of things that run on the car still like a conventional vehicle that needs 12 volt. And then our high power distribution module, so all of that high power, all of that high voltage kind of goes through there and gets then switched to wherever it needs to go, whether it needs to go into the battery or whether it needs to go into the motor or through our charging port. And then we have an onboard charging module. Because we offer 3 different levels of charging, you can charge at 120 volts, your standard outlet at home. The car comes with a portable charge cord for that. You can charge with a level 2 charger, which is a 240 volt charging, also AC, right? You can have one of those installed in your house. It's available on the GM website or third party. And that's 240 volts AC, right? That goes through the same, this onboard charging module controls that. But then, you know, the third level of charging is if you're on a road trip or you need a quick charge. We have the DC fast charging, which is available available as an option on the LT, and I think comes standard on the rear. Backing up, hitting back up. So hitting the same button and it's going backwards. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so we need to make some requirements around this, right? Because we need to come up with a drive unit that kind of meets what we think is what the customer's going to be looking for that performance and for that range. So we throw together some requirements that we have to try to get an idea of what the vehicle, what the axle torque requirements are. So, you've got the positive axle torque requirements of, of having a peak acceleration that we want, being able to hold grades, the 0 to 60 launch requirements, your 80 kph to 130 kph passing requirements, what we want our max speed to be, and then what we want to be able to have in regen. So we kind of throw together those high level chart of where we need the drive unit to provide, right? So the drive unit ended up in the end at, we have a peak axle torque of 2,500 Newton meters, and shows a gear ratio of 7.05, and mass of it is 76 kilograms. I'll show a little bit more of the drive unit here in a second, but so comparing that to what we had with our previous electric vehicle, which was the Spark EV, we significantly increased axle torque and power out of the drive unit and to the wheels for the customer. This is a cutaway of the drive unit itself. It's a single gear drive unit, so there's no gears changing. It's if you haven't spent a lot of time driving electric vehicles like this, it's if you spend time in an electric vehicle driving like this and hop in a conventional vehicle and you feel all those shifts and they feel smooth as they can be, you notice them, right? And with this vehicle, there's no shifts. It's a lot of fun. So the motor itself is the brown piece in there, right? And it's a compact drive unit that drives each wheel through that yellow center shaft through a set of gears. So we also run, need to figure out what our motor design needs to be, right? What does the motor, in order to get that axle torque, right? What does the motor need? And we run through a number of we have durability cycles and cycles at GM that we've run a number of cars through that really doesn't change customer to customer. Customers need certain things out of the vehicle, right? So we take a look at a lot of those cycles that customers would typically go through, and looked at those and lay those on top of each other, and then we pick points on there that are important, and those are where we want to design the motor to be the most efficient. So we took a lot of that information prior to designing the motor to make sure that in those conditions, in those areas, we're really getting the efficiency out of the motor. You don't want to leave anything on the table. So the motor is a permanent magnet motor. There's a lot of design that goes into the motor to try to improve to get the peak efficiencies and also to be able to control noise and vibration. You know, a motor is going to, you know, obviously an electric vehicle is going to have different noises coming from under hood than a conventional vehicle. And some of those noises, you know, might sound weird to people or whatever, right? You know, some people really like it, but it's the whir of an electric motor and the higher frequency stuff. So it's okay to have some of that, right? But, you know, you want to control that. You want to control so it's not obnoxious. And so there's a lot of work put into the electric motor to try to mitigate some of those noises. But also, you know, we need to provide the power and such, right? So in the end, we wound up with an electric motor that you know, we're really happy with. I think it sounds great. It's not obnoxious. You can hear a little bit of it, but it's a cool sounding. You know, when you're in an electric vehicle, it's a cool sound to me, right? You get that whir. So we'll step through just kind of the construction of that motor. So those are the magnets. They're like in a little V shape, right, that go in the rotor. That's the rotor construction. And then we've got the copper windings, which is a copper bar winding. So a lot of technology can go into to get those right and bend those. Pretty thick copper. Right, and then we have you know, like a reluctor ring, so we can kind of manage where and understand where the motor is, what speeds is, whether it's spinning one direction or another, because the motor will actually turn directions depending on if you're going in reverse or going forward. And then, you know, the three-phase high voltage cables that come out of the motor. So then the energy storage system, or sometimes we call the RES, the rechargeable energy storage system. In the end, we wound up with that 238 miles of range, which was much higher than what we were, you know, we thought was the price of entry, which was a 200-mile range. So in the end, we got the 238 miles range as a 60 kilowatt-hour pack. You know, like I said earlier, 429 kilograms, and we can provide, actually the pack itself it can provide 160 kilowatts, and the motor provides 150. And it's liquid cooled. So we manage the pack's temperature. It helps with longevity of the pack, it helps with customer usability, but we manage the temperature of the pack with you know, being liquid cooled, right? So on the high end, if you're in Phoenix on a 120-degree day, or if you're, you know, here in Chicago on a day like today, right, we're managing that pack temperature so that the pack is, you know, kind of in at least in a sweet spot of where it likes to be. So we'll step through, it'll show a picture of the pack here. Construction. So we have 288 cells in the pack. It's broken up into, there's actually 96 cell packs. There's 3 cells per pack. And those are laid out in 5 different modules. You can see the last 2 modules are stacked on top of each other. Those are underneath the rear seat. So, and I think you guys, as we get a little bit further here, you'll see what we have is a manual service disconnect underneath the rear seat. You can pop the disconnect from the pack and depower the vehicle that way. But then you get high voltage wires that run through it. And then the important housing of the pack that then is important for the structure of the vehicle. So that pack housing was, there was a lot of development done in the pack housing for that structure. Extensive CAE work with the pack structure, or pack housing structure, in order to help us with not only the safety aspect, but also for that stiffness that was required. So this is kind of back to that, you know, the pack being important, right? I showed that other picture with the pack being worth about 28% increase in torsional stiffness. It also, what it does though, is with that pack being low, and part of that structure is the sill plates don't need to be as beefy, right? So we have a step over height, we call it step over height, that went from traditionally maybe about 50 millimeters, and that's that tub down in the footwell, right, to about 10 millimeters. If you open up the door, look in, especially through the back seat, you'll see that it's just is a flat floor. There's, you can slide your foot in and out, and that's adds to the comfort, adds to interior space and such. I think I've talked mostly about these already, but I'll go through them again real quickly, right? Some of the major power electronics that we have is that SPIM, or single power inverter module. That's the unit that converts our high voltage DC into our three-phase AC to run the motor, and then it also has all of the software in it that controls the motor for what we want to do, whether it's acceleration or regen. The auxiliary power module is the one that converts into our 12 volt to keep the 12 volt battery charged, but also run your wipers and all those other things that run off of a 12 volt system. And then our onboard charging module, which is our 120 volt, 240 volt AC charging that manages when you plug it in, takes that voltage at 120 or 240 AC voltage and converts it into DC voltage so we can charge the pack. And all of the electronics is also liquid cooled. There's a separate loop in there that manages the cooling of the power electronics. We manage the battery. There's a battery loop for cooling to manage the battery temperature. There's a loop in there to manage the power electronics temperatures, and then we have also the coolant in there that will heat the cabin in a traditional heat exchanger in the cabin. So back to some of these pillars, right? Interior spaciousness. One of the things, this is the first for GM, is we came up with a thin seat technology. Normally, for comfort and springiness in the seat, you have to throw a lot of foam in a seat to be able to get that that comfort. We wanted to increase the interior spaciousness of the vehicle, so we have this thin seat technology. And the front seats, they actually they ride on a spring carrier system. So you can see like the pink part on the right is the actual structure of the seat that you lean against, and the blue is a carrier that has some springs, and it actually is a spring. So we got an additional 2 inches of rear seat legroom. One of the cool things we like to do when we're showing people the car is we grab the tallest guy in the room, 6 foot something, and we have him sit in the driver's seat and adjust the driver's seat where he would be comfortable, then get out of the car and sit behind himself, right? And you find out he has plenty of leg room still, plenty of headroom, right? So that was a big win. And the rear seat in this car is got all kinds of space. So range still, right? You got to go back to those 4 pillars. Aerodynamics. Aerodynamics aren't unique to EV vehicles, but we want to pay a little extra attention because we want to get that range, right? So, extra look and design of the side mirrors. We have an aero shutter in the front, active shutter that opens and closes depending on what speed you're driving. We have deflectors around the front wheels. We have an aero panel under body, right? The pack lattice structure is fairly flat, but we also have a panel underneath the drive unit to try to keep that flow underneath the vehicle. Flat bottom, high voltage battery. We have the lower fascias and an extended spoiler in the rear. You want to have that sharp edge at the back of a vehicle to break the flow around the vehicle to try to increase. And so we had a target in some of our early vehicles. I'm going to forget the number, but it was in the 370 range, like 374. And with continued work and refinement, we got down to a 308, which I think in this segment when it launched was the best aerodynamics for this segment vehicle. So before I get into this, right? So I kind of stepped through those 4 pillars, right? Space, usefulness, and like I said, performance is 0 to 60, but it's also ride and handling and noise and vibration. So In the end, we delivered what we were set out to do. In fact, in many areas, we exceeded what we were originally trying to get. The car just kept getting better and better, and the excitement in the team kept growing because we were getting something that, that we were really proud of. But there's icing on the cake, right? We have to have, in this space, or at least in a lot of vehicles, they're looking for, customers are expecting some additional safety features, right? So we have available, we have lane keep assist. Lane keep assist, if you put that on, right, and you maybe you're not paying attention exactly where you're going, the car will actually push you back into the center of your lane if you start to drift. We have a surround vision for parking, and I'll show a picture of that in a second. We have front automatic braking. If the car in front of you stops, the car, the Bolt EV will actually stop for you. As it sees the vehicle in front of you stopped. We have pedestrian automatic braking, same thing. If somebody walks out in front of you, the car might apply the brakes for you and stop the vehicle if you're not paying attention. Forward collision alert and following indicator you can set, so if somebody on the highway is slowing down too fast, it'll warn you. Side blind zone alerts on the mirrors, there'll be lights that will show you if there's somebody in your blind zone. We have rear cameras and rear park assist for when you're pulling out of your driveway or you're backing up and trying, maybe running into possibly run into a pole that's going to warn you. So a lot of safety features available also in the vehicle. And then there's some really cool things inside the vehicle too, right? So we've got a 10.2-inch integrated center stack. It's a touch screen that's configurable, right? You can have your Apple CarPlay or Android Auto up on there as well, right? So there's energy screens and such all on this 10.2-inch touchscreen display. We've got an 8-inch cluster in front of you that's also somewhat configurable, giving you what your range is, or you can have it show your different trends as far as whether you're using kilowatts or regenerating kilowatts. We've got the 360-degree surround camera. So what it does is there's 4 cameras in the vehicle. There's one up front here. There's one under the 2 side mirrors and one in the rear. And then we take that and digitally stitch those images together. And you can see down below, what you get is a bird's eye view when you're parking. You get a bird's eye view of the vehicle. It looks like there's a camera hovering above your car. And it works great when you're pulling into your garage. And maybe there's a tricycle or something in front of you. You can see on your bird's eye view, you can see that tricycle or whatever in your garage. You can see how close you're getting, so you can avoid some of that. It works, and it's also really helpful when you're parking. If you're backing into a parking spot or something, right? You can see the parking lines. You can know that you're straight or too close to the car next to you. And then we've got the full display rear view mirror. So we use a camera behind the vehicle that's an 80-degree field of view, which is larger than your normal 20-degree field of view. If you watch here, that's the picture with it on, right? None of the people behind you, the heads behind you, or if you have you're hauling something, right? None of that gets in the way. When you have the camera on, you can see at full 80 degrees. And if it's off, obviously you can see the rear seats, and you can see the people behind you that maybe you don't want to talk to or don't want to look at. In the end, so we, like I said, we delivered on our promise. 238 miles range, less than $30,000 after your federal tax credit, and we've delivered over 25,000 of these vehicles in the first year. We promised a couple years ago. We debuted the vehicle at the Detroit Auto Show, and promised that by December of 2016 the vehicle would be available, and it would be over 200 miles range. So we delivered the first vehicles in December of 2016 and hit the 238 mile range mark. And all of last year, as we rolled the vehicle out, sales increased, just continued to increase, and we don't have December on there, but December was the highest one yet. Chevy had this, a particular go-to-market strategy for this, right? You have, like I said, we wanted to have a great vehicle that non-EV enthusiasts would be comfortable coming into the vehicle, right? So we deliberately rolled this out in a particular way. And we had to make sure that the dealers were trained and the dealers had the right equipment, right? And that we marketed it properly, right? So as you roll out, we went to, you know, we started building, we hit the top EV markets first, right? There are certain areas of the country that are more enthusiastic about EVs than others. So you go to those markets first and you talk to the dealers that were ready to enthusiastically sell this vehicle. You work with them. You got to build the infrastructure. You got to make sure that, you know, the area in which you're selling has EV enthusiasts. You know, not every dealer is going to have it, but you know, we want dealers that, like I said, and salespeople that are engaged in the vehicle. You know, there still is, obviously, with EVs, not everybody's got them yet. Not everybody's ready to go buy one yet, but we're working on that. That's part of the plan. And then, of course, you know, the dealer needs to invest in some infrastructure for the vehicle itself. So we work on with the salespeople and the dealers for that readiness. Accessibility. You know, we've gone through, you know, it's been at all the auto shows in the last year or so. But additionally, Lyft. We've partnered with Lyft and Maven. And if you're not familiar with those, Lyft is a ride service, and Maven is what they call themselves, but it's like a rental. You know, you can sign up for a car, use it for a while, and then return it. So we have Bolt EVs and Maven fleets, and also with Lyft drivers. In fact, they actually even work with each other. And some people go to Maven, grab a Bolt EV, drive it as a Lyft for a while, and then return. Speaking with one voice, right? Ensure consistency between local dealers, field teams, and home office. So, you know, it's the same story. We want to make sure that everybody is seeing the same thing. You know, 238 miles. It's fun to drive. It's, you know, it's a great vehicle, even if it wasn't an EV. Working with, you know, print advertising. You know, putting it in newspapers and lifestyle publications and tech publications, all with the same story. More than a great electric vehicle, a great vehicle, period. And that's something that, that's not just some saints, you know, just saying that to try to sell it. That's something that, you know, you get in the car and you drive it, and, you know, most everybody comes away with that same feeling. And I feel that way for sure. This vehicle, even if it wasn't an electric vehicle, it's a great feeling vehicle, great riding vehicle. And then digital advertising, the same thing, right? Consistency in advertising. We have, you know, the banners on display on the digital advertising, they're telling the same story, right? Not just a great electric vehicle, a great vehicle, period. It's everywhere. And that's part of getting the people to make that move away from a conventional vehicle, right? It's, you know, it's if they're concerned about the range, concerned about the funkiness of the vehicle, concerned about, you know, we've tried to eliminate all those things and then can tell that story over and over again. And then, of course, well, awards. We can get to that in a second. We have interactive catalogs, right? So on the My Chevy apps and online, there's videos, like 2-minute videos, a number of them, to show some of the cool functionality of the vehicle. There's one on one-pedal driving. There's one on lane keep assist, right? That explains what the feature's supposed to do and what you can expect from it. There's the EV Life website. On the, there's Q&A, frequently asked questions. There's tools on there for you to determine, you know, what your range would be at certain, certain driving conditions. Sort of high-level questions on what does an EV mean, and little videos with explanations in there. You might find me in that one. So, and then also, you know, it's one voice around the world. This picture, this is out west in Canada. The vehicle's available all through Canada. It's available here in the United States. We have sales. We're on on sale in Mexico, in GM Korea, or I'm sorry, in Korea through GM. And then also we just announced in Dubai, in the Middle East, we're starting to sell some vehicles in Dubai as well. And so, you know, we're changing the conversation. I keep going back to it, right? But it's that this is the vehicle that is not just an electric vehicle. It's a vehicle you can use in all, you know, all your, you know, facets of life, right? You know, throw a kayak on top, go, whatever, you go up to the lake, you know, that's 100 and some miles away, right? No issues. It's a vehicle that's changing that conversation. So the buyers, you know, it's starting to work. It is working, right? 56% of buyers cite that cite the range as the primary reason for purchase. This is the first affordable, high range, or long range electric vehicle, right? I mean, affordable is the key, right? This is something that you can get into, and you can get 238 miles range. You know, we have customers that are exceeding that by a lot. 97% of experienced customers experience a range that is at or exceeds their expectations. 52% are recharging every 3 or more days. I guess, you know, for me, I have about a 20-mile round trip commute. I'll charge once a week. You know, I don't need to charge every day. You know, 20% are going 5 days or more between charges. It's, you know, getting rid of that range anxiety. And then the big one, you know, 33% of the owners have never owned an alternative propulsion vehicle. That means a hybrid, an electric vehicle, an E-Rev, you know, nothing. They've gone from a conventional vehicle straight to an electric vehicle. And that's a testament to us understanding what they were looking for and building the vehicle to meet those 4 pillars. And it also shows up in awards. This is by far, of my years at GM, this is by far the most exciting, best vehicle I've ever worked on. And every day for a while, Fred was calling me and saying, we just won another award. And I can't think of an award that we weren't up for in 2017 that we didn't win with this vehicle. 50-some now, 52 awards. It's been a trip. It's been awesome. And thank you very much.
Also wanted to say thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you like. See you next time.